All right, looks like we're good. Okay, we're just going to go into it. So these are going to be some of the lessons that I learned from buying my first rental property, which I happen to be in right now. And I've owned this property for about a year, and I'm just going to go into some of the lessons that I wish I had known before I bought last year. So first things first, know your numbers. If you don't want to feel anxious when investing, you don't want to feel stressed out, you don't want to feel like you're gambling, you want to feel like you're investing. You want to feel stable. Gambling is putting your money somewhere and covering your eyes and hoping and waiting to see that once it all shakes out that you come out on top. But that's not investing. Investing is logical, it's rhythmic, it's well thought out, and most importantly, it's repeatable. If you want to minimize stress and maximize your return, you got to crunch some numbers. So I recommend tracking this. Now, at first, you might feel more comfortable with pen and paper. So you know what? Just get a pen and paper out, figure out what some of the ratios people look at when it comes to buying houses, figure out what ratios you like to work with, and then just maybe do 5. I challenge you to do 5 calculations on pen and paper. So that's step 1. Once you get more comfortable and you realize that this is really just, a process of repetition, and the easier you can do those calculations, the faster you will be. Then I recommend jumping into something like a spreadsheet. Go to Excel, or if you don't have Microsoft Excel, go to Google Sheets. It's free on Google Drive. Use Google Sheets, get comfortable with the formulas in there, and then for every single row on that spreadsheet, do a different property calculation, and you can just copy your formulas down. Once you've mastered, and maybe do 10, 15, 20 deal or analyses with your spreadsheet. Then once you get to that level, you're getting pretty comfortable with some of these digital formulas, and you feel like, okay, you know what? I've got a system. I know what I pay attention to. I know what matters to me. What other people pay attention to doesn't matter to me. These are the things that I look for, and I want to be able to compare every single deal that I ever encounter against one another really quick to figure out, is this a good deal or a bad deal? Then I recommend putting some time and effort into building a little bit more of a robust digital system. You don't need to spend a lot of money on this. I use Airtable. So what Airtable allows me to do is build a form and a kind of like a simple database behind it, so that I can go to this form anywhere, on my mobile device. I can just go to a website. I can type in the details as I'm standing on a street corner. I can type in the details of what I think a property is worth or what it's actually worth, how many bedrooms it has, what neighborhood it's in. I would give it a rating. Is it an A? Is it a B? What kind of quality is this property? And I would be able to type all of that into a form, and then it would give me a score. It would tell me how it's going to, or where it falls on my list, and I can tell you right away whether or not I want to pay attention to that. And this system, I can go into more. I will go into more detail in a later video, but that's step 3. So don't feel like you need to get to step 3 right off the get-go. It all starts with pen and paper and very small baby steps as you go on, or as you progress. You don't need to analyze 100 deals today, but I would recommend analyzing 100 deals before you buy your first property. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds crazy, but if you start off with 5 deals on pen and paper and try to scale that, yeah, that's going to sound impossible. If you do it on spreadsheet, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a lift, but not impossible. If you move into some digital systems, analyzing 100 deals will be a breeze. It will fly by like that. And so I'm going to show you my tool for analyzing deals in a later video, but just letting you know, these are the things that I would recommend, and these are things I wish I'd known before I gone into this. So lesson number 2 is build your team. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, oh, well, I'm just starting out investing. There's no way that I can get people on retainer or salary or, even, I'm not even looking at properties yet. How do I start talking to these people now? Don't worry, these people are used to new investors. And present yourself as an investor. Explain to them, yes, I'm buying real estate, but I am looking at it through the lens of investing. And ask them what kind of experience they have with investing. Ask them if they invest themselves. Because if you're dealing with any kind of professional in this space, whether this be a mortgage broker, real estate agent, home inspector, or lawyer, if they invest in this space themselves, they're going to be asking the same kind of questions that you want to be asking. If they don't invest themselves, though they might be fine, they might be an okay person at their job, they aren't going to be looking at it through the exact same lens that you're looking at it through. And so I encourage you to just start asking people, hey, do you, I am looking for this type of professional. You do that, great. Do you do any kind of investing yourself? That is a very fair question to ask, because you want to find somebody who speaks the same language that you speak and is looking at it through the same priorities that you're, with the same priorities that you're looking at. So the 4 people you need, talked about it really quickly, but I'll go over it again. You want a mortgage broker, you want a real estate agent, a home inspector, and a lawyer. That's basically your team right there. And that's kind of the order that you want to do it in. You might be able to shift it up a little bit, but the reason I'd suggest getting a mortgage broker first is because you want to figure out how much money you have available to spend. If you're in North America, chances are you're not buying this house completely with cash. If you are, great, good for you. I'm very proud of you, very excited for you. But I didn't have that luxury, and most people do not have that luxury. So you want to figure out exactly how much you're qualified for. If you're in Canada, you can go, to a bank, you can go to a mortgage broker. What a mortgage broker is going to do is they're going to take one application, and then they're going to send that to multiple banks. And typically they don't go with the major banks, they go with some of the smaller banks. They can usually find you a better deal. And in my experience, I've had really good experience with that. My mortgage broker was my favorite person on my team. In fact, her name's Cheryl Sanguinetti. I'm going to link to her right here or down below. And yeah, if you are in Calgary and you are looking for a mortgage broker, I cannot recommend her enough. I don't get paid. I don't get any kind of bonuses for that. That's just my recommendation of her. And I have other mortgage brokers that I would also recommend too. But this is not specific to Calgary. Yeah, step number 1, get a mortgage broker. Step number 2 is get a real estate agent. And the reason I say this is step number 2 is that once you've got, the first question a real estate agent's gonna ask you is, how big of a house are we buying? Or how much money do you have? And if you don't know the answer to that question, then they don't really know how best to find you and filter out products that are within your budget. So so step number 2 is get that real estate agent. And with any of these professionals, find somebody that you trust. Interview them, figure out what it is, again, figure out their experience, how long they've been doing this. My one piece of advice would be to find somebody that comes recommended from a friend. Find somebody who's had a good experience or even just not a terrible experience and ask who they dealt with. Would they recommend that person? So ask your friends, your family, your neighbors, your colleagues. You can ask anybody for referrals. You can say, hey, do you know a good mortgage broker? Do you know a good real estate agent? Why do you recommend them? What was it that you really loved about this experience with them? What was it that you really hated about this experience with them? These are the questions that you can ask to make sure that you get a professional that you know and trust. Because when you have that, you're going to feel a lot more stable and secure when you're going through this process. If this is your first time buying any home, especially, not just an investment property, but any house, it's going to be a little bit stressful, I'm not going to lie. But if you've got a team of people that have your back and are looking out for you and you trust, you're going to be all right. Because my home inspector, he was good. He was recommended by my real estate agent, but there were some things that he pointed out that he definitely diminished the importance of. And had I known that now, I probably would have looked for somebody who was a little bit more critical when it came to these deficiencies that he noticed. For example, none of my vents in my attic were completed. So I have a range hood fan that wasn't connected to a vent. I had a bathroom fan that wasn't connected to a vent. He pointed out that these weren't a big deal because, well, there wasn't any mold, but there definitely should be vents here. And that just was additional work that had to be done and that we didn't really factor into the agreed upon price. And so this was time, energy, and effort and money that had to be spent that wasn't negotiated off the price that could have been. So, find a home inspector and find somebody who, your friends or your colleagues or your family have had really good experiences with, because they're going to tell you, you know what, these are things that you can go back to the seller on and negotiate the price down with, or you can ask them to complete it. Lastly, the fourth person on your list that you need to get is a lawyer. Every single house, you have to go through a closing process, and so a lawyer is going to be involved. This is my lawyer. Yeah, this is, oh man. You will spend probably a good chunk of money dealing with the lawyer, even though they're only present for about an hour of this entire transaction. They have the smallest role. However, they can be the linchpin for everything going smoothly or everything going terribly. I'm going to go into a different video later about my horror story with my lawyer. There were many months of pains caused by this lawyer, and if I had gone with somebody that any one of my friends had just been, had experience with in the past, I would have saved myself months of headache and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And so, again, mortgage broker, real estate agent, home inspector, lawyer. These are the 4 people that are going to be a part of your team. Find people that you know and trust. Find people that come recommended, not just from these other, don't just find a professional that's recommended by a real estate agent. Find a professional that's recommended by someone you know, because their advice is going to be far more valuable. And then the last piece is trust your instincts. If you know your numbers really well and you have a good support team, and you've been doing all of your research and you've been doing your homework, once you start looking at homes and once you start making offers on homes, trust your gut, trust your instinct. There's going to be many moments where you're going to be jumping into analysis paralysis. Don't let that be the thing that stops you from moving forward. There's no way that you're going to be 100% certain on everything. If you're feeling any kind of stress or anxiety about purchasing this property, ask yourself, 1, am I feeling stressed because is there something I don't know? And then if the answer to that is yes or possibly, then the next question is, well, what can I do to get clarity on that information I don't know? Because if you're feeling stressed about something, it's probably because you haven't done homework on something. But if the answer to that is, if you've done all of your homework and you come back and you're like, no, there's nothing else I can do. There's some uncertainties, but there's just no way of actually knowing the answer there, because none of us have a crystal ball. Then you just kind of have to trust your instincts. If this doesn't feel right, maybe don't do it. If the numbers make sense and it will, on paper, this place makes sense all day. If it's in a condition, if it's not completely run down, but it's in a level of condition that you feel like you have multiple ways of dealing with those problems, or it doesn't have any problems, then just trust your instincts, because you're always going to feel a little bit stressed, but if you feel too stressed, there's probably something wrong with this deal. Or if you're negotiating and you feel like the seller is making a request that just, it doesn't make you feel right, or, it's a term that just doesn't rub you the right way, give them multiple offers. Say, well, we can do it your way and we can do it for, a lower price, or we can do it my way and I can give you your asking price. Give them multiple options. But if their counter offer, or if their terms and conditions don't rub you the right way, trust your instincts on that, and don't let that stop the deal, but figure out a way around that so that everybody feels at peace and feels comfortable with the deal moving forward. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to, buyers and sellers, lawyers and mortgage brokers, we're all just trying to get a deal finished and done. And so, If something doesn't make you feel comfortable, there's no reason that you should be in a position of discomfort and pushed beyond your limit because someone else wants to get a deal done. You've got just as much say at this table as anybody else. So yeah, trust your instincts and yeah, stand up for yourself. But be reasonable, be fair. Everyone deserves to come out of this ahead. Yeah, so those are my 3 tips. Know your numbers, build your team, trust your instincts, and I will go into more detail on all 3 of those in later videos. Thanks.